Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the 21 Days of Prayer. I've been asked to talk to you about day 4. We're going to be talking about Jonah. So Jonah, everyone knows the story of Jonah. God asked Jonah to go to the city, the great city of Nineveh, and tell the people that judgment was coming upon them because God had seen their wicked ways. Jonah, however, did not do what God was asked and went the complete opposite direction and ran from what God asked him to do. He got on a ship, and he started sailing out to sea, trying to go the complete opposite of what God wanted. And then a terrible storm came upon the ship. God brought a furious storm against this ship. Sailors that were on the ship cried out to their gods, asking for help. They started throwing cargo overboard to lighten the load. They went and they said, Jonah, what should we do to stop this storm? And Jonah, he knew it was all his fault. He knew that it was him. He said, throw me overboard. Throw me into the sea, and this storm will stop. Instead, the sailors continued to row as hard as they could. They tried to get to land, but the storm was so violent that they just could not go anywhere. So finally, they pleaded to Jonah's God. They said, Jonah's God, please forgive us for what they're going to do, for throwing an innocent man into the ocean. And then they did. They ended up throwing him in. They threw him overboard. And instantly the storm stopped. The sailors were amazed at God's power. They gave him a sacrifice and they vowed to follow Jonah's God forever. So Jonah was thrown overboard into the water, and a giant fish swallowed him. God sent a fish to save him from the ocean. Well, Jonah was in the belly of this fish. He prayed. So in Jonah 2, he says, I cried out to the Lord in my great trouble, and he answered me. I called to you from the land of the dead, and Lord, you heard me. You threw me into the ocean depths, and I sank down to the heart of the sea. The mighty waters engulfed me. I was buried beneath your wild and stormy waves. Then I said, O Lord, you have driven me from your presence, yet I will look once more towards your holy temple. I sank beneath the waves, and the waters covered over me. Seaweed wrapped itself around my head. I sank down to the very roots of the mountains. I was imprisoned in the earth, whose gates lock shut forever. But you, O Lord my God, snatched me from the jaws of death. As my life slipped away, I remember the Lord, and my earnest prayer went out to you in your holy temple. Those who worship false gods turn their backs on all God's mercies. But I will offer sacrifice to you as songs of praise, and I will fulfill all of my vows, for my salvation comes from the Lord alone. The Lord then ordered the fish to spit Jonah up onto the beach. So Jonah, the story of Jonah reminds us that God calls all people everywhere to repent and believe in his promise. So, the challenge today. What has God been prompting you to do that you've been fighting him on? I look back at my life and I remember times where God's prompted me to go in this direction and do this, and I've very knowingly said, no, I'm going that way. And it's never really worked out well. So, are there areas in your life where you may be actively moving in the opposite direction to what God has asked you? So really think on that. It's a heavy subject today. But it's time for a full surrender. So I'd like everyone to write out a prayer, releasing it all to God. Be willing to throw yourself overboard like Jonah did, and let him save you. Trust in the Lord to save you. You may not end up exactly where you think you should be, but know that you're not alone. God is with you, and He will use you for His purpose and His glory. No matter what direction we go, whether it's the direction that God has told us to go or the direction that we've chosen to go against God, God is still always with us. So put your trust in God. Look in your heart today. See where you're not quite following what God's asking you to do. Repent on that. Give it to God. Surrender it. Jump overboard. Let God lead you and guide you. And let His purpose and His glory shine through.